Hello guys and welcome to this video podcast of discussing the match yesterday between AFC Bournemouth and Watford. You may notice that this is out slightly earlier. We got a bit of time over the weekend now and I've got Jeff Hayward with me and we're going to be going over that 1-1 draw at Vicarage Road. Jeff, how are you today, sir?
Fine, yeah, I feel pretty good actually, Sam.
It was a 1-1 that came as a bonus, really, given the fact that for the majority of the game, we were 1-0 down. But how have your feelings been over most of Saturday afternoon and Sunday?
After 94 minutes, I wasn't feeling great. Watching yesterday, consigned to... I never thought we were going to score, honestly, watching that game. We didn't make Foster work hard enough through the game, and I couldn't see us doing that in the minute and a half that remained. But we pop up with a last-minute equaliser, and actually it felt a bit of a bonus point. It felt a bit like, you know, we got a win and we deserved to get a point. The way we played, I thought was good. The approach to it was good. Watford was solid defensively, but we deserved a draw.
I think that when you listen to what many Watford fans are saying, I took a brief listen to the From the Rookery End podcast, which came out on Sunday morning. Do recommend you check that out, by the way. It's an excellent Watford podcast with The Athletic. Obviously, they felt very aggrieved, and there were a number of situations in the game that maybe they should have benefited from where they didn't in terms of refereeing decisions, but I'm sure we'll come to that. And then that last-minute goal, I think, was an absolute choker for them. But anyway, let's wind back to 11:30 when the teams were announced. And I've got to say, I wasn't unhappy with that team at all, and it was what many of us actually predicted. So the 3-5-2, Billing coming in to regain a little bit of control, and then it was Danjuma that supported King up front. How did you feel when you saw that?
Yeah, it was the team that I thought was the right team to pick. You know, there's obviously a little bit of rotation that's got to go on because of the schedule. Great to see Lloyd Kelly back in the side after a few weeks out. And Adam Smith obviously had that last-minute collision on Wednesday night, so no surprise that he was rested. And Billing coming in for Gosling, I thought made sense. Again, Gosling, you know, ran his heart out on Wednesday night, so it made sense to me. I thought Danjuma and King against Solanke, you know, needed a break, I thought. So, yeah, looked a pretty solid lineup, and I was pretty happy with that.
I don't suppose you know anything about David Brooks and how far he's back from coming back, because a lot of us expected him to be thrown in, but not the case.
Expected him to be on the bench at least. JT is talking about him training, which is positive. I think he ought to be on the bench for the next couple of games at least. So, yeah, great to have Josh in the side who... Again, you know, we all speculate about whether he's going to be another Fraser, but JT's been really super positive about him. The Sky commentary yesterday, they were talking about him, you know, throwing himself into training. Great. And he certainly seemed pleased with the last-minute goal that we scored, so that was encouraging to see. So, yeah, you know, as a side, I thought that was good, right team to pick, and, yeah, felt pretty confident going into the game.
Shall we give a mention to Josh King's hair, or do we want to skip over this part?
Skip over it.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Well, yeah, the team I was relatively happy with, and as you say, most of us had it in mind, 3 in midfield to pack it out and try to regain some control over very talented but underrated players like Cleverley. I think the firepower of King up front and the creativity of Danjuma was going to be a combination that might spark a lot of interest, and it was good to see Rico as left wing back as well. Obviously, we know that he's got a lot of energy, a lot of pace and crossing prowess, although, to be fair, we didn't really see it yesterday. And also, we know what Jack Stacey can do on the other side as well. And Kelly came in to deal with the pace of Sarr, and on paper, I think it did look like a good pick. And for the first few minutes, I thought Bournemouth started high intensity, and we started really well, didn't we? We
did. We were moving the ball really well. We were looking threatening. Stacey down that right-hand side looked a threat, and it felt good. I mean, I think Watford set up in a similar way to how we're going to face a lot of teams this season, and they're going to play quite deep against us defensively, try to frustrate us and hit us on the break. And I think that's what they were trying to do. But we were looking confident.
We were, but then not so long after our brief spell for about 3 minutes or so, Lloyd Kelly goes in with a reckless challenge on Sarr, and he should have been off the pitch, really, shouldn't
he? Yeah. With VAR, that's a red card. Without it, he got away with it, and I don't think it was necessarily malicious. The ball was there to be won. He mistimed his challenge, and I think it showed that he'd been out for 4 weeks. He was a bit rusty, mistimed the challenge, but yeah, lucky to only get a yellow for that. And I think that rustiness was also a factor in their goal. You know, he's playing with Rico in that wing-back role. Neither of them, I think, really picked up Sarr. And, okay, you know, Cathcart hits a smashing pass, you know, crossfield pass, which you don't expect a centre-half to hit. But they were both out of position when that cross came in. They should have been tighter to him and stopped the cross, and they weren't.
Yeah, it was a fantastic goal by Preacher, who stretched at the far post and put it past Asmir Begovic, and that was them 1-0 up. But I think that challenge early on, it almost set a precedent. I mean, the rivalry with Watford, has died down quite a bit from what it used to be. It's mainly an online thing, but there were some meaty exchanges. But I think that's just because of the fact that there are two teams that have got relegated that are both vying for whoever won that would have been second in the league at the end of the day. But I found that there was based off of that, there was also a positive energy as well. There was a nice ebb and flow to the early stages. You know, maybe take that Lloyd Kelly challenge out of the equation. I thought it was a quite absorbing game for the neutral.
Yeah, and that feistiness is definitely because I think we know Watford really well. There's that edge because we're looking at them as probably one of the big rivals in the division. And they look at us in exactly the same way, I'm sure, particularly the squad. I mean, you look at that squad they've got. Okay, they've lost Decore, but they've still got Foster, Cathcart, Chalabar's a really good player, Cleverley's a really good player, and Sarr is an excellent player to have in that team. So they've got a strong spine to that side. And that's been augmented by a couple of new players, you know, the kind of Udinese effect. You know, they're not weak at all. They're a pretty decent side. So there is that rivalry. I would also say another tactic that I think teams are going to put against us this season is when are we most dangerous? We're dangerous when we get into a rhythm of passing, when we're playing a fluid, flowing game of football. And I think it's a deliberate tactic from other sides to get niggly with us, to break up the play, you know, to roll over when they're touched, dare I say it. You know, we saw a lot of that in the Middlesbrough game, and I saw quite a bit of that yesterday as well. You know, like the referee was like, come on, ref, they're falling over and you're giving free kicks all the flipping time, which frustrates the players. And I think teams know that gets under our skin because it stops us playing and gets us a bit kind of edgy. So we've got to be careful about that and try and rise above it if it's all possible.
I think the intensity, it's good to see that we can play with intensity, because quite often it's like we play in second or third gear, and despite the fact there's no fans there was that intensity, and, you know, Lloyd Kelly set the precedent. And then, you know, even for Watford, I mean, Watford and Bournemouth, we've always had this kind of yin and yang, like we look at it from our own perspectives and we look at the opposition and think they're cheating, they're going down easily, they're diving, whatever, they're fouling. But then we had Lloyd Kelly, and, you know, Garner, apparently, you know, a lot of Bournemouth fans on Twitter saying that he seemed to be a lucky boy.
Yeah, he got carded and got away with a couple of potential second bookings. I mean, they weren't terrible fouls, but they were enough of them where you think the cumulative effect of what he was doing could have gotten sent off, and the manager recognised that at half time because he got subbed. So
yeah.
Yeah,
it was good to see that type of football, and it was a really good game to watch, even, you know, despite the scoreline. Now, one of the players that is known for his shithousery is Jefferson Lerma, and he overstretched. We don't know how bad it is, but he came off, and then Dom Solanke went up front I mean, it became a 3-4-3, didn't it? With Danjuma, Solanke, and Josh King. And was that a surprising decision that you thought Jason Tindall made? Because it could have been easy to bring someone like Dan Gosling on.
It was a bold move because it wasn't a like-for-like replacement. It meant a change of system. After 12 minutes, he'd obviously thought, well, we're a goal down, so 18 minutes, that injury happens. It's just one of those things. He's played a lot of games in the last couple of weeks, and he stretched for a ball, tweaked the hamstring. Hopefully, it's not that serious. But yeah, I was expecting it to be Gosling. I was quite surprised to see Solanke, but I think that boldness and bravery was the right call, because even the way that Watford started the game, you knew they were going to continue it and play deeper, even more defensively, because they had a lead to protect. How many games have they won 1-0 this season? 3 already. So, that's the way they play. And so putting another striker on, I think, was brave move, but the correct move. And yeah, a slight change of shape, but we were still dominating the game. It didn't seem to affect us losing Jeff.
No, the possession stats show that. I mean, what was it? We had 62% possession as opposed to their 38. But when you look at the shots versus shots on target, we had 14 shots, 5 of which were on target. They had 9 shots, 5 of which were on target, which suggests that they're more clinical in those situations. And I felt that the lack of clinicality, I've said that word before and I don't even know if it is one, up front and in the attacking third was poor from us. And the final ball, the quality just wasn't there. I mean, there was a great counter-attack, actually. This was even before they scored. And Watford got a corner, and I think it was Billing at the near post who headed it away. And I think there was a subsequent run from either Cook or Danjuma, but they were running the full length of the pitch. And then the final pass to Lerma just sort of ran behind him. Now, there were also times where Jack Stacey was on the right-hand side. They were finding him. I felt as though they sometimes should have found him a little bit quicker than what they did. But when they did, his final ball into the box was usually behind the on-running Solanke. And that stopped things. Watford had men, sometimes 3 men behind Solanke, so that he was turning into trouble. And often he'd have to lay it back, as we saw by King, who had a shot. That was later on in the second half, I think. But it just seemed that every time we were in a promising position, the final ball wasn't there.
Yeah, there's still work to do. I think that decision making in the final third ain't quite right at the moment. We saw it on Wednesday against Cardiff as well. You're absolutely right to pick out, I think, Danjuma and Stacey. Danjuma is great when he gives us something unexpected going forwards, but I think he's also a little bit selfish when he ought to be passing. There were a number of times he just ignores that overlap that Rico is making, and you think, get him the ball because he's got a crossing opportunity. Ditto Stacey, I think, when he's sometimes getting ignored, but then when they do get the ball, I mean, Rico and Stacey yesterday, the number of times that their delivery into the box just wasn't good enough. So it's a real issue for us. And then you think, well, what about the attacking midfield players as well? And I mean, Lewis Cook, he needs to hit a 20-yarder on target to get the keeper to make a save, because at the moment, when the ball falls to him like that, as it did yesterday in that first half, geez, Rose Ed's in trouble more than the goalkeeper, and it's we're lacking a little bit of self-belief in that final third, and I can't explain it, because there are goals in this team. The passing and the interplay is getting much better, but yet it seems to fall apart when it gets important. I think you're right. Now, I think it's almost like a game of chess where, I mean, you could see that Watford were lined up their banks of defenders and midfielders, and to be fair, they were resilient, and I thought they were very well organised and very well drilled. So a lot of the times we were playing the ball from left to right in front of them, and it was almost a case of we were just looking for gaps. And sometimes we would almost lose patience and play a through ball to the on-running King or maybe Danjuma. And, 50% of the time we would retain possession. And that's
4 players that we've subsequently beat, so we can push on. However, sometimes we lost possession. It was just like, you know, we've done all that passing, and at times it felt ponderous. And I've got to say, though, one of the players that has been much maligned, Philip Billing, I thought he had a pretty good game, because in terms of possession, he didn't actually seem to lose it much yesterday.
Yeah, I thought Billing was good. He sprayed a couple of decent passes as well. But yeah, there's a mental thing going on about do we go for the jugular when we're not quite set up as an attacking force, or do we just hold possession because that's more important? And I'd like to see more of that. Just go for it. Take a few more risks. And you're right. Sometimes, you know, we beat a player and you think, oh, yeah, we've got a chance now because we're through that sort of midfield area. And then we turn back to hold possession and let them get back into shape again. You have to do it all again. And it's I'm not quite sure where that speed has gone, that speed of thought, speed of attack. I mean, if you go back a couple of seasons, you remember when we beat Watford at Vicarage Road a couple of seasons ago and we killed them on the break?
Yeah.
What was it, 4-0, 4-1 that game?
Yeah, 4-0, yeah.
You know, and that sort of speed of thought seems to have gone a little bit, as well as that kind of risk taking. We need to play a bit more like that. I don't think I see a sort of progression. I think we're getting a bit better. But it would be nice to see a bit more of that.
You're right. You know, sometimes we do have to go for the jugular, and I'm thinking in my head of the 5-0 at Brighton, the goals that we scored there on the counter-attack, and also that 4-0, as you say. Now, you know, some of the goals in that game were absolutely brilliant. And, you know, you notice that no one ever stopped the ball and then they cut inside. They just went for it. And frustrations like those are sometimes what I have with every so often with Adam Smith. Had them with Jordan Ibe all the time, whereby we would look as though we were in a really good and promising position, and then all of a sudden he'd stop, wait. And by that time, there's 3 other players that have run back, and there's 3 more players to beat if we want to score. Dan Juma, I found, has done that a few times. Now, when he's been more successful, that goal against West Ham in the Betway Cup, he started nearly on the halfway line, just went for it. The goal he scored against Brentford, yes, he did cut back onto his right foot, but there was purpose there with it. And within a couple of touches, the ball's in the top corner of the net. And I find that when we do stop like that, you know, it does break up. And when you've got the defensive quality of Watford, I honestly thought that it was going to finish 1-0, and it was going to be one of those games that felt like there was another goal in it. But I didn't ever think it was going to come, and not least because the shots that we did have were straight down the throat of Ben Foster. And Dom Solanke, fair play, he got into a great position on 30 minutes. He made room for a shot. He put it onto his right foot, but he curled the shot round the corner directly down the throat of Ben Foster, as I said. And Kirk Tovey said on the free-for-all, which is watchable on YouTube, that seasoned strikers, experienced strikers, decent strikers would be finding the corner in those situations. I mean, fair enough, he perhaps couldn't see the goal as well as he might have, because he did have a few defenders in his way, and he almost swung his right foot round it, not knowing where Ben Foster was. But you've got to be finding the corners, and that really was quite a clear-cut chance.
Yeah, the Solanke debate, I mean, I've seen a lot of it recently where people are saying, you know, he's not a natural goal scorer. He got 50 flipping goals in the youth team at Chelsea, didn't he, one season? Yeah. He's a goal scorer. I think what's clear is that he reminds me a bit of when Tammy Abraham played for Swansea in the Championship. You know, you thought he's got a lot of promise, but he's never going to score goals. And yet now you look at Tammy Abraham and you think, actually, he's a quality finisher. And he's scored some great goals in the Premier League last season. Has been scored some great goals for Chelsea since he got in the first team. So I think we've got to be a little bit patient with him. You know, that effort that he had yesterday, there were two that stood out for me. That first half one that you say, I mean, hitting it into the corner like Danjuma did against Blackburn is, you know, that takes some skill. That's what you wanted him to do. That's what he was trying to do. Hits it straight in the middle of the goal. You know, got it wrong. Okay, you can see what he was trying to do. Didn't work. The second half effort where he takes it onto his left and you know, it was a nice height for the keeper. Okay, picking holes. That needs to be on the deck. Make it really tough for the keeper and in the corner. and you might score actually with that one. But he created the space for himself to get the shot off. That's better.
Yeah, and this is what I'm liking, about Dom Solanke, is that he's creating chances. And it felt like even Callum Wilson wasn't even creating the chances during lockdown. So he's at least getting and manufacturing the positions by getting in the right positions. And, one time where he didn't make it himself was on 44 minutes, just before half-time, a Rico cross, and it almost hit his shoulder. And it was a clear opportunity with his head and, should have notched. I think Josh King might have scored that, but then Josh King, because he missed a header that perhaps he should have done better with in the second half. So all over the pitch, we just don't seem to be clinical.
And again, slight mistiming of the header, that does happen where you get it wrong and it comes off your shoulder. Okay, let's be patient. I think he's getting the chances. It will come against, there are going to be weaker defences in the Championship than Watford yesterday, and I think we'll get clearer sights of goal. I think he was unlucky not to score a hat-trick on Wednesday night. Arguably he should have finished. He should have finished with 3. The keeper makes a blinding save and he misses a header in that game as well. So it's not quite clicking for him yet. He's getting the chances. I think actually it probably helps him playing up front with somebody else like King. So he's not having to do everything, because I don't think he's a channel runner particularly, whereas Josh did a lot of that yesterday, and I thought that was helpful for us. And you kind of feel we've got to score more goals. Yesterday was better, and if you look at the progression, Cardiff was better than QPR. We're going to be playing against deep defences. We'll probably face that again against Bristol City, which I'm sure we'll talk about. So creating the chances is getting better. Got a flipping finish now.
Yeah. On the plus side, I do feel as though we're not far away from absolutely hammering a side. I really feel as though that is just around the corner, and ideally that would happen against Bristol City on Wednesday night. Who knows? But it's a player that we haven't really mentioned yet, and someone that kept us in the game, and that's Asmir Begovic. And as the second half started, it was a really good save from Sarr. This was a ball over the top, caught Jack Stacey and Steve Cook really flat-footed and almost 2 square on. Sarr was just in that gap, and it was a powerful shot. And I tell you what, as strong right arm saves go, that was a really good save from Asmir, wasn't it?
Yeah, brilliant save. I think Begovic has been a bit of a revelation, really. The fact that JT's got confidence and has picked him, he's repaying that confidence, playing well, looking solid, exactly what we want him to be. And I think that's given the defenders a bit more confidence that when they do make a mistake, he's on it at the moment, and that's terrific.
Yeah, it really is. So as we've mentioned before, King blazed over the bar where we got into that promising position. Jack Stacey played it again behind the striker, so Solanke had men behind him, laid it back. King blazed over, and then Solanke having another effort, as you say, which Ben Foster saved as well. And then there was a moment on 65 minutes or so where Lewis Cook, he wins the ball from a corner and he marauds up the pitch and he sets Dom Solanke free, who runs for about 15 yards before a deflected shot goes wide. And in that situation, I honestly feel as though Dom has got the confidence and the skill and the technique to actually beat his marker, because he was running from the kind of left-hand side. Usually what I've seen him do before, he sort of feigns to go right, but then he goes left around his marker and then he can get through on goal. But he didn't do that. And sometimes I just want to see Dom run at people. We saw what he can do against Leicester. He started in a very deep position, ran towards goal, ended up scoring, albeit maybe Kasper Schmeichel should have done a little bit better. But he did get a shot away, to be fair. It was a deflected wide. Why is he not doing that against Watford? He's a confidence player, isn't he?
Seems to be a confidence player. I think he's quite frustrating to watch at the moment. He's getting into good positions. He's doing some good things. Just not going for him. I mean, when he hit that one that was deflected, I thought that's going in. Watching it on the screen, I thought that's going in, and then to see it just go wide, just think, it's just not happening for him. Josh King, I think, was a bit rusty alongside him as well. You know, like that header that he had in the second half and the shot that you mentioned where he blazed over the bar. Where, you know, Dom is great at doing that setup, you know, getting the ball in congestion in the box, laying it back. You know, that's created 2 goals for Lerm already this season, that sort of play. And Josh has got to hit the target from there, but he's a little bit rusty. Yeah, it was one of those games when you were watching it thinking, it ain't going to happen for us today. Which made the final couple of minutes all the more surprising.
Yeah, and you know what? We're in danger on the podcast, on the free for all. Every show that we do, we're always talking about Solanke, but we know how good he can be, and we know he's got the capability of being a good player for us. And I'm certain, you know, certainly more than someone like Jordan Ibe, I think he will be able to deliver for Bournemouth this season, especially. So, you know, it is taking a bit more time, but it's not this is not an Dom Solanke bashing exercise or anything like that. We're not doing that because we know what talent he's got. And it's more the frustration, really. And I would like to see Jason Tindall stick with him because he, as you say, what he doesn't offer in being clinical up front, he offers in holding the ball up and, you know, supplying people like Jeff Lerma with a couple of goals. And I think, you know, he's a young player with a lot to learn, and Josh King can hopefully be, you know, somewhat of a teacher up front for him. Now, later on in the game, we replaced Dan Juma, who I think was fairly ineffective, and Junior Stanislas came on. But still, the crosses into the box, they were loopy. Josh King, he found room, hung a loopy cross up into the air. Rico's crosses were loopy, and when they haven't got that pace and the power, it means that players have got to generate their own power. And Josh King had a chance where he had to generate his own, but just couldn't quite get his neck muscles right. And Ben Foster, I think he just palmed it over the bar in the end, but I felt he should have been worked harder with that header.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we can put a lot of emphasis on players like Solanke not scoring, but actually the build-up play and that delivery into the box, you know, we've got to get better at it. I think what's frustrating is that we know the players are better at it. Yesterday, I mean, I love Rico, right? I think he's a great player, but he was so frustrating yesterday. You know, it's like he's forgotten how to hit the ball in with pace, or he's over-hitting it, or it's too loopy. You know, a number of times the ball went in the box and Foster was just like, it's catching practice. You know, it's just not quite there from the build-up play. And Danjuma, it almost looks as though defenders have figured him out already, because if you watched him yesterday, a number of times he gets the ball on that left-hand side, defenders are just standing on his right because they know he wants to cut in and curl it into the top corner. And he's got nowhere to go. You know, they channel him down that left-hand side. He can't cross with his left with any pace or precision. It's not the same threat. So we've got some work to do, I think. Some of our players have just got to be better at what we know they can do and think and be a bit more intelligent about how they play.
So it looked like it was going to finish 1-0. Riquelme came on for Rico, and that was almost the last throw of the dice. And, you know, to be fair, he was integral in the move that got us our equaliser, and it came from an unlikely source, Chris Mepham. The ball was half cleared from Watford after a corner, and it came back to Riquelme, who, fair play, it was actually not bad. He sort of hit it on the half volley with his instep and curled it in. Dom Solanke went up with Ben Foster for the header. Foster could only punch out and found a man who probably shouldn't have been on the pitch. I'm not sure whether his shot was going in, but Chris Mepham made sure it did.
Nice finish, I thought. You know, Meps does a really good job controlling it, because they came at him with pace. It was sliced, you know, it was spinning, and okay, you know, he's 3 yards out. He was bright enough to be on the right side of the 2 defenders, so he wasn't offside, and I thought he controlled that really, really nicely with a decent touch and fantastic. I punched the air because we deserved it, and I didn't think it was coming. So great. It
was good, and yeah, I was just setting up for the free for all on YouTube at that point in time, so I was just getting my lighting ready, and I just assumed it was going to be a 1-0. Had the script or the monologue almost ready to go in my head, and then, you know, out of the window, Chris Mepham scores, and it's amazing what that goal could actually do for mentality, in the fact that we're still unbeaten. And what do you think that can do for us psychologically?
Well, we've got 2 home games now, so we've got to make the most of it. But I do think Watford away is likely to be one of the toughest, if not the toughest test that we're going to face. So to get a point in that game, and I think what's interesting, I've talked a lot about how other teams are set up to play against us this season. Watford, one of the contenders you'd think for automatic promotion, set up like that from the start against us. What does that say? Okay, it's partly it's the way they play, but also I think it shows the huge respect that we're getting from other sides in the division, that they're sort of treating us like the only way they're going to beat us is a 1-0 on the break sort of goal and then defend deep for 80 minutes, you know. And that, I think, should fill us with a bit of confidence that teams are scared of us. Because even after we scored yesterday, for that final minute, Watford were terrified. You know, you could see that they were panicking, thinking, geez, we could lose this. And it looked like we had a bit of impetus and could do it. So I think the self-belief is going to be helped. I think we need to recognise that that if we are better, like you say, I think a decent win, 2 or 3 goals, 4 goals, even more, it's not far away. You know, keep the faith, keep patient. We can win. We can win more games, definitely.
And Chris Mepham scored, and I must admit, I did look to think, oh no, VAR, is it going to chalk it out or anything? But it doesn't matter, does it? I've still got that moment where I'm still not completely celebrating, but I'm sure that will disappear and fade away. And when I see goals like that, I always like to look at how other players react, and to see how emotionally invested they are in, because it seems like when we've scored this season, I remember that Dom Solanke one against Middlesbrough, players just almost jogged to him to celebrate. And I think the nature of it being a last-minute equaliser and against our rivals or whatever, you could put it in inverted commas, but everyone seemed to be so excited. Maybe not Junior, but he's just so relaxed about everything anyway. But you could see the celebrations there. And it's a good point to take to the Vitality when we face Bristol City. Jeff, thank you very much for coming on the video podcast today. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me.
And yeah, we are delighted the fact that Bournemouth are still unbeaten. And yeah, we've got 2 home games now. And yeah, we really need to stop this rut of draws. And I don't want to call it a rut because we're still learning, we're still developing, but come on, we need 3 points. So I would love a return of 6. What did you think about that performance? Anything you say? Do you think about what me and Jeff said that's right or wrong? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video. Up the cherries.